Hi everybody, and welcome to A Course in Miracles Applied. Today's topic is the quote, "To learn this course requires willingness to question every value that you hold." That is in the introduction to chapter 24, The Goal of Specialness. When I read this for the first time, I remember pausing and thinking about this quote for quite a while, and I could sense its depth, even though I really had no idea what it meant specifically, because I had no idea what my beliefs were, my values were. I was just struck by the line's requirement to question every value that I held. But to be honest, I had no clue what this meant, and I think it was a good thing that I didn't. Over the years, it became a little clearer what the sentence entails. Question every value that you hold. I imagine an advanced spiritual teacher or master asking the student to go out and learn to question every value that he or she holds, and then 30 years later to come back and report back to the teacher. And after 30 years, the student would come back to the teacher and thinking now he had or she had questioned all his values or her values, and the master would send him out again to return again after 30 years and so on. When I went to the foundation for A Course in Miracles in Roscoe in the 90s, I remember very clearly, I had this memory, we were going to the grocery store and we were all riding in the foundation staff van. They had like a 10-passenger van or 12-passenger van, and they went to the grocery store once a week to whoever wanted to go. And I remember sitting in the van, we were riding down to Roscoe, and I said something like, I didn't know what the course was about until now. And the staff members just smiled very sweetly. I had been doing the course for about 3 years, and now after 30 years, I can say that the more I study and apply its principles, the more I realize what it is about, namely how little time I want to spend with Jesus or the Holy Spirit in my right mind. I think that's a value to be questioned right there, right? I think it might be the biggest and most impactful value to question. How much time do we want to spend with God? If we're completely honest and using some of the Course's own criteria of what it means to experience the peace of God, we must admit that we are not spending a lot of time with it. Is it even 1 minute per day? I think that would be a lot. A minute is long. The holy instant is short, on the other hand, because it seems as if no time at all goes by while we're in it, right? But the question really is, I think, what do we value? What is it that we value more than peace? And why? The value we cherish is our individual existence. If the ego is the belief in separation and individuality, and we value individuality, we then must value the ego. This, though, as we have previously discussed, is still relatively neutral if we look at it objectively, right? Individuality and separation aren't values in and of themselves, and if looked at with reason, it can be dismissed fairly easily. That's why the ego came up with another belief, and one that has as its goal to obliterate our decision-making capability completely. It is the belief with the most impact. You could call it the ur-belief. It is the one belief all of our other values come from. It is our belief in sin. From there stem all of our beliefs and values, including but not limited to our beliefs in friendship, love, family, money, status, the world at large, our own world, and ourself. Our whole value system is based on our belief in sin. I know this sounds crazy, right? But let's think about it, right? Us together with the ego made our persona, our false self, as a defense against our right mind. We made this self with all of its values, and we made it together with the ego. But the ego is based on our belief in sin. Therefore, anything and everything that comes from it must come from our belief in sin. It has no other source, and the right mind contains no other values than love. So in short, any value, any belief that isn't all-encompassing love must stem from the ego. We don't have to question our right-minded beliefs because those aren't the obstacles, right? The problem, I think, though, is that we believe that some of our ego beliefs and values are right-minded beliefs. Our family value systems, for example, or our beliefs in friendship and love. Jesus makes it clear, however, that those are based on what the Course says are special relationships. And even though they seem to be right-minded, they are not. Therefore, I think it makes sense to do what Jesus asks us, namely to question literally every value that we hold. The real and true ones will remain. The false ones will eventually disappear. So one way of going about uncovering what our values are is to expose their purpose. What are they for? What do they accomplish? The outcome of any situation will show us what the situation was for, right? If I speak to someone and find myself upset afterward, then the purpose of the conversation was me getting upset. And I set that purpose before the conversation even started. Again, we can generally discover the purpose of anything when we look at the outcome of the situation. Let's say we value family, right? Let's say to us it is the most important thing. In and of itself, and according to the world, this is a good value, right? Who doesn't like someone who values his or her family? It's a noble value. It should be right-minded, right? As a basic rule, though, when we are in the right mind, the whole sonship is our family. When we are with Jesus or the Holy Spirit, everyone is part of our family with no exceptions. When we're with the ego, separation is our goal. And if we make distinctions of whom we give our love to and from whom we receive love, we must be with the ego. That is, from the perspective of the Course, extremely valuable information to have for us as a student. Because, quote, we cannot lay aside the obstacles to real vision without looking upon them. That is in the text chapter 12, section 2. It's important to realize that if we make any kind of distinctions among the members of the sonship, we are buying into the ego's premise that we will be safe if we separate ourselves from the rest. Now, the goal is not to feel guilty that we put our family above all else, right? But it is important to note that we will not have peace while we make distinctions among the sonship. It is simply not possible. Now, how does this look in practicality? How do we go about our family events, etc., with this in mind, right? It's Christmas time, we all get together with our families. We value this family above all the other families. We're a course student, what do we do? Jesus tells us to question our values, not to abandon them. We look at our values, in this case, that we love our family above any other family, and we ask Jesus or the Holy Spirit for help. That's it. This will obviously not be solved immediately, right? It's a process, and while we're in it, we love our family just as much as we did before, but with the one distinction that we realize that whatever love we're feeling right now is only a fraction of the love we have for the whole sonship. But we're still too afraid of this all-encompassing love, and that's okay. We might value certain friendships. Again, it's never about not having those friendships, right? Jesus would not say don't have those. But it is about looking at their purpose, the purpose we have given them. The ego, as we said, always wants separation. It wants to keep us small, and it wants to keep the other person small. Jesus wants us to keep those friendships, but free them of the guilt we have laid upon them when we made them special and used them against the rest of the sonship, right? With Jesus as our teacher, those special friendships become beacons of light, showing us how we would feel if we would accept the love that is there in every relationship, in every encounter. Workbook lesson 121 contains an exercise about that, and it says, the unforgiving mind does not believe that giving and receiving are the same. Yet we will try to learn today that they are one through practicing forgiveness toward one whom you think of as an enemy and one whom you consider as a friend. And as you learn to see them both as one, we will extend the lesson to yourself and see that their escape included yours. So, with Jesus as our teacher, we can learn that our friendships become blueprints for how we can see everyone. That doesn't mean we will lose our best friend or that we won't have regular friendships anymore. It will mean, though, that there might be a time when we question things as they are, and the ride might get a little bumpy for a while. That is part of the process. The outcome is usually one where we will be able to have deeper friendships without excluding others from it. The Course says, I have said repeatedly that the Holy Spirit would not deprive you of your special relationships, but would transform them. That is in the text, chapter 17, section 4. And this is so, the transformation rather than the Holy Spirit taking them away, this is so for every value we bring to the Holy Spirit or Jesus to look at. Be that money or faith related, politics or world issues or certain principles we hold dear. This also includes judgment of others. Or times when we get annoyed about someone or disappointed in someone. Judgments are beliefs. They are values we hold and are just like all the other values and beliefs we have. They're all the same in Jesus' eyes. And if we look upon them with him, he can use them all alike. The Course says, such is the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness, of all of our values and beliefs. His use of what you made to heal instead of harm. So here's an important point, I think. Only the values we are not aware of will stay out of healing's reach. Whatever we look upon openly can be used for healing. even if it originally was meant to harm or to keep the separation going. When Jesus asks us to question every value that we hold, he does that not because of the values in and of themselves. He does it because those values are hidden from us. The values and beliefs are never the problem, because they stem from our belief in sin and guilt. They are all the same for him, because he knows the sin they stem from is entirely made up. For him, our beliefs and values are not the issue. The issue is that they are hidden from us, and the reason why we are not aware of our values and beliefs is because under the ego's guidance, we want them to be hidden because they hide something bigger. And this is what the Course refers to as the double shield of oblivion. It says, "But what you have forgot can be remembered, given willingness to reconsider the decision which is doubly shielded by oblivion." That's in the workbook, lesson 136. So our beliefs in and values hide the guilt. And guilt keeps us from the place in our mind where we could decide against the ego. Uncovering those hidden values is our part. We look at them and what they really give us, and we ask the Holy Spirit and Jesus for help. That is the extent of it. That's it, right? A value or belief that is no longer hidden cannot be a true obstacle. So let's go one step further on this journey. Now here's where it gets tricky for a while. This is the practical application of it. So we have established that our values and our beliefs are there to hide guilt from our awareness. Once we begin to look at our values and beliefs, once we begin to question them, what will inevitably happen is the guilt that was hidden by our beliefs and values will come into awareness. This isn't a pretty picture, right? And Jesus knows this. He says, guilt must be given up and not concealed. Nor can this be done without some pain, and a glimpse of the merciful nature of this step may for some time be followed by a deep retreat into fear. For fear's defenses are fearful in themselves, and when they are recognized, they bring their fear with them. That is in the Song of Prayer, chapter 1, section 3. So when we begin to question our values, we will inevitably encounter the guilt that was hidden underneath it. This guilt can express itself in many ways, through pain, fear, anxiety, depression, intense feelings of loss, abandonment, and such. This is a very normal and this is a very necessary step toward our freedom. Imagine guilt is the bubbles in a seltzer bottle, right? When we shake the bottle, that means when we begin to question our values and beliefs, the guilt that has been building up below tries to get out. The moment we open the lid, the bottle seems to explode. So when we begin to question our values, our beliefs, we might find ourselves projecting more than usual, be angrier, more impatient, less tolerant, more irritable than average. And we ask ourselves where this is coming from, right? We then might think that we are to blame. Now that is a necessary step also. There's a reason we have pushed our guilt far away from us. We still believe that if we were to get caught with the guilt, God would kill us. This is a serious problem for us, and for a while we might go through a phase where we think will literally, certainly die if we continue on this journey with Jesus. We might close the book and throw it away because we are afraid that in the end, God will come and take the life back that we stole from him. Whenever we get in touch with our own guilt, as uncomfortable as it is, and it is extremely uncomfortable, it is always a sign for our willingness to move beyond it. Always. In times like these, we are asked to be extra gentle with ourselves. Jesus urges us, quote, "Let us be very calm in doing this, for we are merely looking honestly for truth." The dynamics, in quotes, of the ego will be our lesson for a while, for we must first look at this to see beyond it. Since you have made it real, we will undo this error quietly together and then look beyond it to the truth. That is in chapter 11, section 5. Now, we're all together in this process, right? You and me, everybody is in that same process. And even though everybody's process might look a little different, the core is always the same. And the core is we are on this journey to uncover the guilt we hold on to. And we hold on to it so that we don't experience the love that lies underneath it all. I think that's a very important point. That is why the core of A Course in Miracles is the undoing of guilt. And in order to undo guilt, we must first look at what it hides. The foundation of the Course's teachings is not love, because that is our natural state. The core is to uncover guilt and expose it to the light of our right mind. Otherwise, we will think we're following this book, unaware of our investment in keeping our guilt going, keeping our guilt in place, so we will never return to our right mind. Now, it's really important, I think, to note that the ego is always 100% engaged and in full commitment to achieve its goal. Namely, to keep us away from the place in our mind where we could decide against it. That's its goal. Imagine the ferocity of a lioness protecting its young, and now multiply this 1,000 times. The motivation of the ego is boundless because its life literally depends on our choice for it. And guilt is what hides this place of decision-making, and because the ego's goal for us is never to approach this place. Its goal for us never to approach guilt in any way, shape, or form. Stay away from guilt. That is the ego's premise. Either push it out into somebody else, project it outward, or hide it deep inside under layers and layers of positive emotions, positive feelings, lovely images, including our values and beliefs, and those images we receive from the Course. In short, the ego's motivation is still 100% active while we are studying this Course. It will and does use it to its full capacity. The ego uses our studying the Course so that we don't reach the goal of the Course. How can it not? It is 100% committed to its goal because its life depends on our decision for it. It will use this Course and everything in it to keep us away from our guilt, because the guilt hides that place in our mind where we can decide against it. It's very clear. The Course, the ego's main goal is to minimize our attention to guilt. The ego says, don't worry about the guilt. Concentrate on the beautiful, poetic images in the Course. Concentrate on the love. Don't concentrate on guilt. That's ugly. You're making it real if you're concentrating on guilt. That is what the ego tells us. Because the ego knows that once we get through the guilt to the other side, we are at the place where we can say, I don't need this ego anymore, and it's gone. That's why it does not want us to reach that place. So in summary, Jesus asks us to question our values and beliefs, right? But not for their own sake. He asks us to uncover our beliefs because those beliefs hide guilt from our awareness. Why? We're trying to hide the guilt in others and from ourselves because we believe that if we were caught with it, we would die at the hand of God. That is so frightening to us that we cover up this guilt with our values and beliefs. Now, guilt itself is a made-up concept. It is not real, right? It is only there to hide the truth of who we are, namely the innocent Son of God. That is the only purpose of guilt. But in order to get to this in our mind, where we realize this, we must first uncover the guilt that lies there. It is hidden from our sight and camouflaged by our beliefs and values. Now, as we said above, and that's the final point, I think, uncovering our values is not an easy feat, right? It's not like, oh, I like cheesecake and all I have to do is question it. That's not a value Jesus talks about. He does not care about cheesecake at all. It's more like, I think God will kill me when he finds out that I'm guilty. This belief in family values or character values or religious beliefs or my liking cheesecake will stop him from finding me and killing me. So our values aren't just values. They are there literally to protect us from getting in touch with the guilt, because once we're in touch with the guilt, it's like we're grabbing onto a GPS signal and God will find us and kill us. That's why our goal is, when we're with the ego, is to stay away from guilt as far as possible. Whether it's in somebody we project it onto the world, or whether we hide it within us and camouflage it with our nice values and beliefs. And this is why it's so crucial to at some point begin a relationship with Jesus or the Holy Spirit. The more time we can spend with them, through either looking at our ego with them or simply sharing our thoughts with them, it does not matter. The more we realize that they are not, Jesus and the Holy Spirit are not what the ego tells us to be, namely God's generals, who will eventually lead us back to him, and then he's going to kill us. The more time we spend with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, the more we realize that they love us, that they will lead us to our peace and the sinlessness that is our only reality. But in order to do that, we need to spend time with them, as much as we humanly, decision-makerly are able to. So, there's this one paragraph in chapter 13, section 3, in the fear of redemption, that basically summarizes the whole thing that we just talked about. And I'm going to read that as a closing. It says, "You have built your whole insane belief system because you think you would be helpless in God's presence. And you would save yourself from his love because you think it would crush you into nothingness. You are afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little, because you believe that magnitude lies in defiance and that attack is grandeur. You think you have made a world God would destroy. And by loving him, which you do, you would throw this world away, which you would. Therefore, you have used the world to cover your love. And the deeper you go into the blackness of the ego's foundation, the closer you come to the love that is hidden there, and it is this that frightens you. On this uplifting note, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.